Hi guys, this is Nia and today I'm going to be doodling these test tubes with flowers inside. Originally this was just going to be a pen doodle, but I decided that it's going to be cute to color it in and I'm pretty happy with the result, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. Firstly, I just want to make sure that my test tubes are fairly even all throughout. I want the length and the width to be fairly similar, and I also want to alternate the positioning. So the first one will be positioned lower, second one will be higher, and third one lower, and so on, which is why I'm drawing up a grid with a ruler like this, 2 lines at the top and 2 lines at the bottom. But if you want your test tubes to just be positioned the same way all throughout, you can just draw a grid with 2 lines, one at the top and the bottom, which will indicate the top of the test tube and the bottom of the test tube instead of drawing 4 like this. The next thing that I did was to divide up the spacing of the test tubes. I know that I want a bit more space on the left hand side and on the right, so I gave a bit more space there, but I more or less tried to figure out the center of the test tubes for each of them, and this will just make it a bit easier for me to visualize as I'm ruling up the pages. What I'm doing here is just a rough estimation, so I just eyeballed the positions of the test tubes. If you want yours to be a little bit more accurate than mine, you can actually measure out the spacing also, but I find that that's a bit too much work for a doodle, and I find that this is sufficient and it's flexible enough for me to erase and move the positions about if I want to. I'm also alternating the height, as you can see, and hopefully from looking at this, the grid makes a bit more sense. Here I'm drawing a curve at the base of the test tube, and I want them to align to the grid that I've drawn out earlier so they can be more or less positioned evenly. If at any point, whenever I'm drawing out with pencil, you feel like you can do this with pen straight away, you can also do that, but I find that it's a bit safer for me to draw in pencil first. It's just a bit easier as I outline it later, but when I'm drawing the details, I feel that's a bit easier for me to doodle freehand. Whenever you're following along, you can adjust the steps to your own skills. So whatever I'm drawing freehand, if you're not comfortable to do that straight with pen, you can always use pencil first and vice versa. Now I'm drawing out the top portion of the test tubes. I'm drawing out the rim that is slightly thicker than the body of the test tube that I've slightly curved for a little bit of perspective, and I also felt like adding a cork lid would be a cute touch to the doodle. Personally, I tried to align the middle or the center point of the oval at the top of the cork with the line, but because there's a bit more going on here compared to the simple curved base, sometimes the alignment of the test tubes are not too accurate, but I felt like this is still okay. But again, you can make yours a bit more accurate with the pencil first if you'd like them to be a bit neater than mine. Here I feel like I have enough information to start doodling with my pen. I just want to outline the pencil drawing, and I also want to add an additional line inside with an extra curved line at the bottom to indicate the thickness of the glass of the test tubes. If any of you would like to just doodle the flowers instead of having to draw all these test tubes over and over again, I'll also have the traceable printable template of the test tubes available in my coffee shop, because honestly for me the highlight of this is doodling the flowers inside, so I'll just leave that as an option in case any of you feel the same way as I did. This is fairly repetitive, so I'm just going to continue outlining the rest of my test tubes. I also added an upside down curve at the bottom for an extra detail for the base of the test tubes. This is completely optional, you don't have to add the extra curved lines, but I just find that this gives an extra dimension to the flatness of the test tubes. After this last test tube, I don't feel like I need the pencil marks anymore, so I'm just going to erase everything and have a clean spread for me to doodle on the flowers. Let's move on to the fun part. For this first one, I'm going to be drawing out amaranths. These are basically just egg shapes or oval shapes that is a bit textured, but since I want to fit a few of these in the single test tube, I felt like I needed to draw it out with pencil first to figure out the positioning and also the size so they can fit snugly in the test tube. I just drew out the egg and oval shapes with pencil, and I felt like it was already sufficient for me to add on the details with pen. But just like the test tubes, if you feel like you need more pencil marks as guide to help with the pen doodle, you can also sketch out the stems and leaves before outlining them. After drawing out 3 to 4 pointy leaves underneath each of the flower bulbs, I like to outline it using this kind of fluffy texture around each of the bulb, and I add this additional texture following the curvature or the cross contour line of each of the bulb inside as well, and this will just give a little bit more volume to the flowers. After that, I'm going to connect the flowers by drawing out the stems, thicker stems for the larger bulbs and thinner ones for the 3 underneath. After that, I'm also going to add a few pointy leaves, and I'm going to draw them in different sizes. For the next one, I'm going to draw out lavenders. I always include lavenders for my paintings and doodles whenever there's a lot of flowers involved because they're just so simple to draw. I make little clusters of tiny ovals or teardrop shapes connected together at the center, and then I arrange them either upwards or downwards, with the top being smaller and a bit more pointy compared to the bottom overall. Sometimes I like to also leave a space for the stem in between each of the cluster to make the composition a bit lighter, but sometimes I also like to bunch them together. For this, you can make shorter ones, longer ones, or smaller or bigger, and just figure out how you'd like the composition to be inside of the test tube. I've always drawn and painted lavenders so many times that I felt like doodling them straight away with pen is comfortable enough for me, but just like the previous flower, you can sketch out the positions first with pencil if you need to. Once I'm done, I'm just going to add thin leaves and that's it. For this one, I'm thinking of drawing Lily of the Valley, which are still budding out. I've personally never seen the real flowers before, so I'm not even sure what the size is supposed to be in comparison to the test tube, but it's just a doodle and it can literally be anything you want, even if it doesn't exist. And I find that that's the beauty of illustration, is that you can just make anything you want. I used pencil here to draw out the stems and the little budding flowers, and I want to make sure that the budding flowers, which are just basically dangling from the main stem, look natural and flowy, which is why I decided to sketch out the positions first before outlining it with pen. As I'm outlining it with my pen here, I try to make the oval buds smaller near the tip or the top section of the flower stem, with the sepal attaching itself to each of the buds or the flowers to the stem. And as it gets towards the bottom, I try to make it slightly opened and bloomed, where the oval is unfinished at the bottom, and I also made the bottom a little bit more frilly, going outwards to depict the tiny little petals. And I'm just going to repeat this for the rest of the areas that I've sketched out with pencil. I'm going to do simple tiny leaves for this next one, so I used my pencil to sketch out the branch, and then I went straight to my pen to draw out the small leaves, which are facing different angles surrounding the stem so it doesn't look too static. For this next one, I'm going to draw a single flower with a small flower bud at the bottom. This flower is fairly layered and detailed, but I just feel like I need the simple petals and where the flowers are facing to be sketched out with pencil first, and as for the rest, I'm just going to draw it straight with pen. I don't know what flower this is, but I really like the way it looked from the reference image. I actually took a lot of the flowers that they have from the reference image too, because I just think that they're a really cute combination, which is why I'm just trying to roughly recreate it here. But I'll also link the picture in the description box, just in case any of you would like to see where I got this idea for this doodle. Moving along, this is another one that I have no idea what the actual flower is called, but it looked really cute from the reference image, so I'm just going to recreate it. I just drew out a couple of main stems, but I'm actually going to draw 3 main stems for this particular one to complete the composition. For this one, I just made sort of like an oval or teardrop shapes that is a bit textured for each of the little, I'm not sure if I can call them flowers, but like those fluffy things. And I just made the top part a little bit smaller compared to the fluffy things at the bottom. And to finish it off, I made a smaller stem at the bottom and also a couple of leaves at the back, just for a slightly different shape. The flowers in my test tubes are fairly full, but if you like a simpler composition, you can also just do one main stem for all of the flowers that I've done here. It all just depends on your taste. I've doodled mostly flowers here, so for this next one, I decided to just draw out leaves again. And for this one, I was thinking of the Japanese pine leaves, which kind of fans out in little clusters, and they're a bit more rounded compared to how the normal pine leaves are formed. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm just going to repeat the shapes until I fill the test tube. As for the last test tube, I'm just going to fill it in with berries attached to a branch. For the berries, I just draw out circles with pencil first, and for one of the sides at the top, I'm just going to add a little flowery section from what I searched. That's apparently called the calyx. And having this feature on the berries and placing them in different positions will just give the impression that the berries are less flat and that they're facing in different directions, which will make the placement look less static. So here I'm just working from the top downwards, adding smaller branches and also more berries to fill the test tube. So here are the filled test tubes. However, looking at this again, I felt like I can add a bit more detail to the cork. So here I'm just adding a few textures by drawing out sort of random shapes, circles, or dots to give the cork texture. And I also added the cork underneath that is visible through the glass. I also decided to add another curved line underneath the cork lid on the test tube, and this I find will just give an extra detail to the dimension and the form of the test tubes. Since there are a few test tubes here, I'm just going to keep on repeating this step by drawing out the texture and also the extra detail. So initially, this is what I intended the doodle to be, just as a pen doodle, but I thought that adding a little bit of color would be nice. So I decided to just add a little bit of watercolor wash to this. And here are the colors that I'll be using in case you want to do something similar. Firstly, this is Burnt Sienna by Holbein, Yellow Ochre by Holbein, Buff Titanium by Daniel Smith, Mineral Violet by Holbein, Vermilion by Holbein, Permanent Yellow Deep by Holbein, Gray of Grey by Holbein, Jaune Brilliant No. 2 by Holbein, Terre Verte by Holbein, Cobalt Blue by Holbein, Mauve by Cotman, and Aquarius Green by Szmal. I think the painting portion of this video is very straightforward. It's basically just like coloring in the outline flowers, and you can also use colors that doesn't really exist in real life. It's just something that you can have fun with. For this portion of the video, I think I'm just going to leave you guys to it and paint along, or if you're still doodling, to just doodle along with some soft music. I think that'll be relaxing for you guys. And if anyone is interested in the specific colors I use for certain parts of the doodles, I'll just write down the colors and the mixtures. I didn't really mix too much colors for this though, so it should be fairly simple and straightforward. So I hope you guys enjoyed the rest of this video, and I'll see you near the end. So this is the completed doodle. It's quite simple, but you can make it as complex as you'd like to make it. Personally, I find this really relaxing to do, and I hope you guys feel the same way. Like usual, all the list of tools as well as my social media links along with the reference image will be in my description box. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye!